Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of Newberry County Council to order. We'll begin with the invocation and pledge by the Honorable Ms. Mary Airwood.
If you would, bow your heads, please. Our Heavenly Father, we just come to you tonight and ask you for the guidance that we need to make the right decisions for the citizens of Newberry County. Lord, be with us and be with the ones that are sick and the ones, we've got some on the council that's got some things that we want to give praises for, Lord. But guide us and direct us. In thy holy name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Todd, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am here in spirit. How about that?
That sounds great. I won't do as good a job as you do, but I'll fill in for you this evening. At this point, do we have additions, deletions, and we'll adopt the agenda?
I'd like to make the recommendation that we eliminate under appointments the Economic Development Task Force. It seems that we've had a good turnout of names, et cetera, for that particular board or task force. Seeing a lot of people on there. Some people I don't recognize. I've discussed it with other council members, and they don't also recognize some of the names. And to give everybody a due chance, I think we need to have either a work session or executive session, because it is similar to personnel, so that we could at least truly discuss each person to make sure we get the right combination and give everybody the right to serve.
Do we have a second?
I second that. Everybody said.
Okay, Buddy made the we have a second by Travis. Buddy made the motion. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. Todd?
Yes.
All right, passes unanimously. We'll eliminate item 17 alpha from our agenda for tonight. Any other changes, additions, or deletions? If not, do we have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Livingston, seconded by Mr. Shealy. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. First, Todd, did you say?
I did say yes.
Okay. All right. Public appearances. We've got some new faces tonight we get to see and welcome into Newberry County and Newberry County government. So let's start with Mr. Glasgow.
I don't know what it is, but I take John. I take the Mr. tonight. I don't get that very often, so I take Mr. Council John Glasgow, who may not know who I am. I'm president of the Election Commission Board. A little story how we got to where we are now. We had a director who got promoted or got a new position with the state, and we also, our deputy director retired at the same time. And there's only a two-person office, so we were what you call an empty nest for about a month of getting somebody replaced. So the board members kind of flexed and took care of that month. We did some applications through the county HR. We interviewed about 6 people for the position, and the board felt that Ms. Anitra Williams was the best candidate for the position, and we're here to present her tonight. She's been very much involved in Newberry. She is a Newberry, and I said Newberry in Columbia. Her mom's in Columbia, but somehow the grandmother has taken her away, so she lives in Newberry with the grandmother, and she's been in Newberry with the grandmother for most of her life. She's been involved in several things around Newberry, so she's very familiar. She's worked probably just about every poll in Newberry as a poll worker. And so she had experience. We stole her from the Department of Social Service in Columbia, that she was commuting back and forth from Columbia. She felt this was an opportunity to get off the highway, and everybody know what that's like. So we was fortunate enough, and the board felt that she, among the candidates that we interviewed, she was the ideal for the position, and truly, she has hit the ground running. We know that the legislatures has thrown a lot of new kinks in the process right now with the changing the rules and everything, but she has began to put things in place that we think we're going to be able to have things in place by the primary election. So I'd like to present to you Ms. Anitra Williams, who is now our new director for the Election Commission. And from our perspective, we're so happy to have her, and I hope that all of you can work with her to make what we do and what she do go very smoothly. We are in the process, getting prepared for our primary in June. We are in need of poll workers, so if anybody in the room want to be a poll worker, Anisha said we're about 40 people short, so if you know anybody that's interested in being a poll worker, by all means, have them to contact the office. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Would you like to say a word? Welcome to Newberry and welcome to your new position.
I guess I could say thank you for allowing me to be here today and presenting me to the council, and I'm happy to be in Newberry, serving the county that I've lived in my whole life, and I'm happy to do good work for the county, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have some other public appearances. Brian Franklin, I think you've got a few things to talk to us about.
Recruiting, I always like to hear that. That's always good to be constantly recruiting. Yeah. So anyways, it's with great pleasure that we're going to present two folks tonight. Miss Jackie Lawrence, which I think the council is fairly familiar with. Y'all interviewed her, and she was the candidate for clerk to council. She's a 19-year resident of Newberry County. She's coming most recently from the solicitor's office. She's had prior experience with the South Carolina Judicial Department, and she says she's ready to take it on and grab the reins and go today. She's going to get her first trial by fire, I guess, here today. So, anything you'd like to say? Said enough? Okay.
Well, well, welcome. And we have lots of work for you. It's been building up for quite a while, so thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of work, I was having a conversation with some admins, our admin department before we started here. So there's nobody happier than y'all two being here, by the way, to them, because they've been carrying a lot of hats lately. I will say that from my interim director position, they've really carried a lot of the clerk's duties and the HR duties. So I'm sure nobody's happier than them to get these two folks in. The next person I'd like to introduce, I'm very proud to introduce, is Miss Debbie Peak. She is going to be our new Director of Human Resources. She has been a Newberry County resident for 22 years. She's got over 21 years of human resource experience, which she has extensive experience in benefits administration, class and compensation, recruiting, evaluations. She's got a real positive thing with ADP, which is our payroll system. She's already fairly familiar with that. She's also familiar with PEBA, which is our state health and retirement system. So that is certainly a plus for her. I look for her to have a real easy transition if I don't mess her up too bad. But I think she's going to be a positive impact for Newberry County. She's bringing a wealth of knowledge, and I know she's certainly happy to be here, and I know Chris and the admin and group as well are ready to go forth with that. And she's got a lot of exciting ideas we've talked about the last couple of days, 3 days since she's been on the job. So anyways, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Debbie Peak. Debbie, you got anything you want to add?
Just glad to be here and the support I'm getting.
Thank you,
Back
Mr.
in
Hipp.
Newberry.
And Brian, thank you so much for all you have done as our interim HR director. And I'm sure you're glad Debbie's here, and also Jackie. And thank you for all your work.
I appreciate it, Mr. Hipp.
Okay, at this point, we'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda is consideration of Newberry Electric Co-op's request for $92,000 as a 50/50 matching grant to expand broadband. Would like to ask, well, we have 2 distinguished guests that'll come forward and explain this to us.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself as I have a conflict.
All right. Thank you, Nick. We'll let you know whenever it's over.
I can do it.
Vice Chairman, thank you. Council, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. We wanted to come and present an opportunity that kind of came our way. As we've discussed before, y'all are well aware of the initiative that Newberry Electric Cooperative kind of undertook here a few years ago to get broadband, fiber, high-speed internet into the county itself, which is a huge undertaking. For us, it was going to be a $22 million project to start with, but we were not going to be able to serve all the members of Newberry County. So we had an opportunity to kind of come our way that we want to bring to you this evening. I want to introduce Ms. Stephanie Sullivan. She is the Vice President of our Operations Support for Newberry Electric Cooperative. She's the project manager. She's the brains behind this outfit. She knows 10 times more about this than I do. So I wanted to bring her here tonight to present this opportunity for us to be able to partner not only with the county, but also with the Office of the Regulatory Staff. So I present to you Ms. Stephanie Sullivan.
Okay, thanks. Okay, as Mr. Avery just said, we're here requesting a 50% match from the ARPA funds in order to construct fiber to the home service to unserved non-member areas. So to give you a brief summary of what this grant is, it's the broadband office has CARES 2 funding still available for disbursement. So their plan for these funds is to run a pilot called the Last Mile Grant Program that's focused on those residential homes with students that completed the I Need Internet survey. Okay. In this case, they're focusing their attention on the census blocks that show as served on their broadband maps, but they're actually unserved areas. So these are commonly known as donut holes within served areas. So these program requirements, this grant requirement, is that we include at least one of the homes that completed the I Need Internet survey in our proposed areas. Will require a 1-to-1 match, and the overall construction must be completed within 120 days of the notice to proceed, or October 21st, 2022 of this year. So that's a pretty tight timeline. So the areas, as marked in you have some maps in front of you.
There's 2 of them.
So as marked in red on the maps you have, we're proposing 3 areas, and that includes Bedford Way, Key Island Road, and Venge Road. Okay, so with those 3 areas, we have an estimated construction cost of $184,000. So with those areas in mind, NEC is requesting from the county $92,000, which is a 1-to-1 match of this grant. Okay, and this match is needed because by law, the cooperative cannot spend member money to serve non-members. Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything else, or are you open for questions?
I am
or-
open for questions.
Okay. Do we have questions from?
I just have a comment. I work with the school district, so
Yes.
I'm fully aware of a lot of the students who were in the non-area.
Yeah.
And parents having to put them in their car and drive them somewhere where they can get some response.
That's right.
So I truly think that we truly need to put forth as much of effort as we possibly can to get those students some capability to continue their education.
Thank you.
I concur with what you're saying, Travis, but since you did mention the school system, did the school district get any monies that could be also utilized to help support any of this stuff?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you know?
I don't know. I know they received some
Not
money,
bad.
what they're eligible for, I have no idea.
And I know they've been meeting about trying to figure out how they can take care of those students who don't have internet capability.
Well, I know one of the original maps had us like 3 million and something dollars, and I'm just thinking if we could all pool our monies together, it, you know, again, I'm okay with this, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but to get the entire map covered, I think the project was like 3 million some odd dollars, and if the school district's got money, which obviously our children who are getting education, they should have as much buy-in or desire to do that if they've got monies to do it as we do, we can all partner together.
I certainly agree, and we can actually reach out to the superintendent and see. I know there's been a lot of money flowing in for different things, and a lot of it is pretty well designated for broadband expansion, but I have no idea, but we certainly reach out to them. This project here, like Stephanie said, kind of come about because of some leftover funding from the
Right.
CARES 2 Act. And that is a tight timeline, and the timeline, with it being as tight as it is, you know, we're kind of skeptical whether we can get it done or whether we can't get it done because of the supply chain issues and those type things that are going up. But I will personally reach out to the superintendent and see if we can.
Well, like I said, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that I'm disagreeing with this. I just want to, if we can cover more, using more,
Yes.
and spread the wealth of monies that are coming in for the kids and all in our district.
And there are some more funds that, you're exactly right, Mr. Livingston, there's more funds that are actually coming from the state. I think the
Right.
state itself is gonna have somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 million that'll be available. I think they got 285 million, I think they've got to go out and request another 125 million or something like that, but there's gonna be money available. And the money's got to be available in certain areas. That's why
Right.
this one was, it kind of targeted what we wanted to target here.
Well, we've got monies, but we've also got emergency services that we can use some of this monies for, and I don't want to use all of ours if we can also share the burden with
Totally
other
understand.
entities, especially, again, being a former educator.
Yeah.
Kids are our main, I won't say our main focus, but they're one of our high priorities, and we need to make sure that if this virus raises its ugly head again and we got home, you know, everything's at home, those kids need to have access, and the school district should be willing to help if they have monies.
Yeah.
And I think they do. I really think they do, because I know Molly Spearman reported that was gonna be one of the key things within the budget this year. So I'm thinking they're gonna have money.
And some of that money that they have been allocated, I don't think has been passed down yet. But
Right.
I think that conversation needs to be had. with the
Right.
school district.
Yeah.
If we were to agree to do this 50-50 match on this, can it be done in this year's budget money? Do we have enough contingency funding remaining in 2022? We're nearing the end of our budget year, rather than go into our budget for next year.
He's asking from ARPA.
You can vote to spend the ARPA money. I don't know if you can hear me, but you can vote to spend the ARPA money by resolution or vote of council, is my understanding.
That's independent money of our budget, so it can be done basically just with a vote.
Okay. And this is still not going to provide service for everybody, but this is still
Start.
an improvement.
It's a start.
It's a start.
Can I ask a couple of questions before we vote, please?
Sure.
How many houses will this serve, and how many of the unserved student population that was part of the survey will this serve?
The first part is, we don't know how many of the survey, it was, the way it was passed down, the Office of Regulatory Staff handled that survey itself. Stephanie, how many?
This will provide service to over 50 premises, these three as a cumulative. And as far as who's eligible, it's whoever went online and applied for the survey, or actually filled out the survey. And a list was provided by ORS.
And where is that area?
It's Bedford Way. Are you familiar with Bedford
No.
Way? They're all in District 2. It's Bedford Way, Vinge Road, and
Okay.
Key Island Road. They kind of run together.
Okay.
And these were not areas we chose. These were areas that come up based on the Office of Regulatory Staff's research.
Based on their address list, and that we could get to in this tight timeline. I mean, we still have to construct it, so.
Okay.
Keith, you've been a blessing in Newberry County for a long time, and I'm not opposed to, and I like the idea of getting internet, but I'm not sure this doesn't feel like a piecemeal to me. At $45,000 a house, I mean, $2,000 a house seems like a lot of money on our side, and then you got to match that on the other side. So
I can assure you, with money that we've already spent so far to serve the members of Newberry County, or members of Newberry Electric, no, that's not a lot of money. Not with the cost today. As a matter of fact, I was surprised as cheap as it was.
Any other comments, Todd?
no, no, I'm good.
I think we should use all grant money we can.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion to provide the $92,000 matching grant money to the co-op from the ARPA funds, county ARPA funds?
How soon do you need the funds?
Well,
Go ahead.
we'll need a commitment before the end of the month, before we commit to ORS to build it.
Okay. I think we should base it on, how much we can get from the school district. Have that conversation with the school district, and if they can do a three-way, that would be even better, but if not, then we can fund it.
Yeah, we won't have another meeting before the end of the month.
We're gonna have to vote.
So we need to,
If we're going to do it, I
Mike
think,
could approve it with the stipulation that the school district gets approached and see if we can get some money from them, because just because we approve it doesn't mean we have to pay the full $92,000 if we can get money from another source, right?
That's exactly right, Mr. Hibb. And two, a lot of this plays in part, even though we come to y'all requesting this match. If we run into a supply chain issue and we don't get it done by October 31st, it's not going to happen anyway.
Right.
But the problem that we're running into now, not only is the time frame, is trying to order the equipment necessary to spend and serve these folks. So time is tight.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with the stipulation. If the school has some funds, we'll certainly approach them and see.
Okay, what are the wishes of council? Do we have a motion, or?
I make a motion that we approve it and at the same time try to see if we can get some more to go with it.
Okay, Ms. Airwood makes a motion to approve the 50/50 matching of $92,000.
A second.
And a second by Mr. Reeder. Any further discussion from you, Todd?
No, I don't think so.
Discussion by others?
Mr. Chairman, if
Yeah.
I could just make a suggestion that the award be contingent on the ORS granting
Of
the
course,
grant, and
Good point.
they
Yeah,
still have a
yeah.
review.
that's right.
And it sounds like it's contingent on a contribution from the school district and contingent on the ORS awarding the grant, that be added as a stipulation of spending the $92,000 from ARPA.
Okay, would you accept that
Yeah, I'll make that.
change to your motion?
Change,
and,
add those into it.
and since, Christopher, you did chime in, what would be your recommendation in this?
Staff is neutral on this particular issue. The ARPA funds are there. I'm not in a hurry to expend a whole lot of ARPA funds while the detention center and the CPSD and the public safety complex are kind of hanging in the winds depending on the referendum. So it's been my hope that we can hold those in reserves, knowing those large capital projects are uncertain, their destiny is uncertain at this point, but $92,000 isn't gonna affect that too much, but we've done some piecemeal spending of the ARP funds, which is not something I'm in support of continuing to do piecemeal spending. I'd like to put a plan together and get together and workshop once budget season's over and we have some time to do that. But with CPST unknown. It probably would be best to wait till November to put a spending plan together, but my preference would be to put a plan together for the rest of the money. But we're neutral on this particular.
Well, if we look at the map that you originally presented, it had $3,198,000.
That's right.
That would cover basically everybody in Newberry County?
No,
That's,
no. Go ahead.
well, that included all of that Duke area. And,
Yeah. It covered a lot of the area, but it was still some of the area over toward Pomeria that did not cover. But
Okay.
the map that we showed covered a lot of it, but it's not gonna cover
Right.
everybody that
Not
is
Whitmire, not,
unserved.
Okay, because when we look at that $3,158,000, it served 987 people, which, Todd, going back to what you said, that's $3,240 per household is roughly what you'd be looking at.
That's right.
And my only other contention, again, Keith, please take this with respect, because I got nothing but respect for you and what you all do. And that is, I don't like piecemeal approaches. I like a comprehensive plan. I think we're on a good track for that. This feels a little piecemeal to me. Again, it's not negative at all.
Oh, I totally understand.
Yeah.
And with the
And we don't know how
conversations,
many students we're gonna serve, and that kind of bothers me. Look, there could be one kid get served by this, or there could be 50. I mean, none of us know the answer to that.
could be. We wanted to try to maximize the amount of monies that we could get without having, we did come initially, said $3 million something dollars, and I think, Mr. Livingston, you said that, let's see what we can find else. Well, this is leftover money from CARES 2 that we just found out about a couple weeks ago.
a couple weeks ago.
Type deal with a very tight timeline. So it's an opportunity to get, ORS funds, almost $100,000 of ORS funds to go along with the funds here. So we're attempting to try to maximize the amount that we can get from the different entities.
And who made the decision on the location of the funding?
ORS put the survey out and basically identified the donut holes. And based on the availability of what we feel that we can get from equipment wise and the size of the areas, that we kind of narrowed it down a little
Yeah,
bit.
we narrowed it
because,
down to those three.
yeah, we could have come and asked, I think, what was the other one? 200,000?
It was Lakeview.
Yeah.
And
There was some other, but there's no way we can meet the tight timeline. Because if we don't get it done by October 31st, we don't get it done.
I just know I've gotten a lot of calls about Carolina Connect in areas that can't. And I just want people to understand, we're not making this decision where it goes. Somebody else is making this decision. We're just voting on where it goes.
That's right.
So,
This was all based on the survey and the tight timeline that we have. These are the only 3 areas that we can get to and meet that timeline, we feel.
And I think, everybody has made some excellent points, but we can't wait till we have a plan together on our ARPA funds. We're on a tight timeline. If we're going to meet the end of the month, we're going to either have to go forward with at least this phase of it and support it or not, because we don't have really another opportunity.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, Newberry Electric is still pulling fiber throughout the county. There's still areas that, we serve that we have not gotten to yet, as well. We don't expect to finish, the areas that we serve probably till end of this
October.
year.
Yeah.
End of this year. Once again, provided the supply chain don't drive on us.
Is there any more discussion on this motion? Ms. Airwood made the motion and with the contingency added that, of course, you have to be able to use the money. We're not writing a check and then y'all can't use it, so it's not a commitment beyond whether or not you can actually produce.
No, sir.
And-
Once we, and Stephanie can correct me, because like I said, she's the brains of this outfit. The issue as far as the funds, if you approve the funds and something happens, like I said, that we can't do the job, then of course we would not be eligible for the ORS funds, which means I see your funds being going by the wayside as well. So what we are gonna have to do is we're gonna have to front all this money up front in hopes of finishing up to be able to get these grants.
But if you don't make the timeline, we don't lose 92,000 in ARPA funds.
No.
And that's what I think we just needed to make clear.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, any other discussion before a vote? All right, we have a motion, we've got a second. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Todd, by voice? Voice vote, Todd, yea or nay?
My brain is swirling. Yeah, yes.
Okay. In that case, we're unanimous, and thank you for that. We will,
Who should we get back with on council about the meeting that we're gonna have with the superintendent? Who would you want us to get back to get back with
Probably
Christopher?
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
Are we still looking for other grants? I know
Every day?
every
Yes,
day,
yes,
Every
ma'am.
day.
because I know we had brought that up before,
Yeah.
even for the county to be looking for one.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of money that's coming down specifically for broadband. So we're putting in for a lot of that, and once it's available, you know, they've approved, the infrastructure bill, all that, but they're gonna be sending that money to the state, but none of that's been released yet. So, we're steadily looking for grants whenever we can get it. Because it is very expensive. I mean, Chairman Johnson's exactly right. That's why nobody's ever gone into the rural area, because of the cost. Because when you look from a pure business perspective, if you're gonna be looking on a return on your investment, you're not gonna do it. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda, item 4, is proclamation of National Police Week, May 11th through 17th. And gives me a great honor to be able to read this proclamation and present it to the law enforcement officers that we have here this evening. So it's wonderful. The proclamation reads, to recognize National Police Week 2022 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Newberry County law enforcement officers. Whereas, since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 23,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and have been killed in the line of duty, including 8 members of the Newberry County Sheriff's Office, Newberry Police Department, Whitmire Police Department, and Newberry City Health Officer. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas 619 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 472 officers killed in the 2021 and 147 officers killed in previous years. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 34th Candlelight Vigil, which was held on the evening of May 13, 2020. Whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of the National Police Week, which will be observed this year in May 11 through 17. Whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags will be flown at half-staff. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Newberry County Council will observe May 11 through 17, 2022 as National Police Week in Newberry County and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across our nation. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be published in the official minutes of Newberry County Council, and it is so resolved this 18th day of May, 2022. I would like for the law enforcement officers that are here this evening to please come forward and accept this proclamation and our thanks for all that you do. okay, if we can get everybody in 2 rows?
Maybe 3.
It's wonderful to have this turnout tonight. I hope nobody robs the bank. Thank you. You've heard me read this, but on behalf of Newberry County Council and all the citizens in Newberry County, thank you for what y'all do. I mean, it is, you protect us, you serve us, you put your lives in harm's way, you do all the good things for our community, and words can't express that. This doesn't even come close to saying all that needs to be said for all you do. Thank you.
Freaking Friday.
I should have had it over here.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks, bud, appreciate you.
All right, appreciate it.
What you giving her? I thought it was a wooden nickel.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
You the man.
What's the value on this poker chip?
I thought it was a wooden nickel.
Leave it alone.
Okay, we'll move on now to item 5 on our agenda, ordinance number 5-10-2022, an ordinance to adopt a false fire alarm ordinance for the county of Newberry. This ordinance is to encourage businesses and homeowners to maintain alarm systems properly and to provide penalties for violation of this ordinance. This is second reading of the ordinance. Have there been any changes?
Not since first reading, no, sir.
Okay. Having no changes been read, do we have a motion for this to be second reading? Motion by Mr. Livingston, second by Ms. Airwood. Discussion. No discussion. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Todd, yea or nay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 6, ordinance number 5-11-2022, an ordinance to amend the budget ordinance for the fiscal year 2021-22, ordinance number 4-12-21, to provide for revised revenue and expenditure appropriations related to operating and capital purposes to provide for unanticipated cost of the purchase of a fire truck previously approved by council. This is second reading. Any changes?
No,
since
sir.
First reading, no changes. Do I have a motion that this be second reading? Motion, I'll take Mr. Shealy this time, and Ms. Arrowwood as a second, and any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Todd, by yea or nay?
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Item number 7, ordinance number 5-12-2022, an ordinance amending ordinances number 10-7-19 and ordinance 05-16-20 of Newberry County to amend the use of a portion of the proceeds of the general obligation bond of Newberry County authorized hereby. This is a second reading. Any changes since first reading?
No, sir. This is
No changes since first reading. Do I have a motion that this be second reading? A motion by Ms. Arrowwood, second by Mr. Reeder. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. Todd, yea or
Yes.
nay?
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously.
Yes, it was probably under the table up here, it's kind of late.
All right, item number 8 on our agenda is ordinance number 05-14-2022, an ordinance amending portions of Chapter 34 of the Newberry County Code of Ordinances revising provisions dealing with, 1, the amounts requiring council approval, 2, the state and federal purchasing, and 3, the sale and transfer of surplus county property. This is first reading. Could we get some additional information? Jay, would you like to fill us in?
Yes, sir, Mr. Hipp. The number one, you may recall at a budget work session, council asked if we could revise the language, and so that has been included in this. If it's unbudgeted, it's $25,000 or less is within the purview of the county administrator. If it's $50,000 in budgeted, that's within the purview of the county administrator. Otherwise, if it's $25,000 or more, it's got to come before council. If it's $50,000 or more and budgeted, it's got to come before council. That's the first part. The second part, we had a request from one of the using departments to allow purchasing from a cooperative purchasing. So we've included language that was not previously in the code to permit that. And finally, when we were going through the process with the Kavanaugh tract, it was pointed out that it was not specific to real estate, so we've now included references to real estate for surplus property. Those are the changes.
Okay. Having heard those changes, do we have a motion that this be first reading? Motion by Mr. Shealy, second by Mr. Reeder. Discussion.
Can you give me a little more explanation on the surplus property? I mean, what are we saying there?
Mr. Livingston, we have surplus property as a section of our procurement ordinance, but it talks generally about personal property. It doesn't talk about real property. So I still believe we have the authority to do it, but we've answered the question if somebody wants to say what says just personal property. So there's two places where I've inserted or taken out personal and said personal or real property. That's the only change that's there. It's not, hasn't changed anything as far as the intent of it being surplus to the needs of the county, which still must be declared by the county, and then go through the process that's approved for however we want to get rid of it.
So basically, the county administrator, just for example, couldn't say we're going to get rid of the old sheriff's department and not come before council for that purpose?
No, it'd have to come back before council because council has to declare it surplus.
Okay.
He does have, there was already in the purchasing ordinance, he does have the authority for computer-type stuff.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
Gets old and doesn't need to come before council. But if it's something that's significant, like property, either like we do it for fire trucks or ambulances, and we also would do it for real estate. We've done it for, since I've been here, there have been 2 times that we have put real estate, real property up for bid, and both times it came before council to declare it surplus to the needs of the county before we advertised it. Or put it out for auction.
Any other comments, questions? Todd?
None for me.
Okay. In that case, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand.
Yay.
And yay. Okay? Unanimous. All right, our next item on the agenda, item 9, is Ordinance Number 05-15-2022. An ordinance to impose a 1 cent, 1% sales tax subject to referendum within Newberry County pursuant to the Capital Project Sales Tax Act to define the specific purposes and designate the projects for which the proceeds of the tax may be used, to provide the maximum cost of the projects or facilities funded from the proceeds to be raised by the tax, subject to funding cost overruns as provided by law, to provide for a county-wide referendum, and to concur in the contents of the ballot question in such referendum, to establish the priority in which the proceeds of the tax are to be expended, to authorize the issuance of general obligation bonds of Newberry County, subject to such referendum, to defray costs of projects and issuance costs, to provide for the conduct of such referendum, to provide for the administration of the tax, to provide for the payment of the tax, and to provide for other matters relating thereto. And this will be first reading for this CPST ordinance. Do we have, let's see, is Theo here? Theo's not here. We have a motion that this be first reading?
Yeah, but then I got some discussion right after.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a motion by Mr. Livingston, a second by Ms. Airwood? So we are now open for discussion on the CPST.
I think Christopher sent out a memo today earlier that this probably should be by title only since we do not have all of it together. Is that correct, Christopher?
Yes, sir. That's just an option. You have the option to do it by title only since we provided a title and published the title in the agenda packet. The other option would just be to defer decision tonight. We are under a little bit of a tight timeline. My understanding, I was at the CPST meeting on Monday where they concluded their work and produced the resolution that was provided today, as well as the list of projects. And that will be put into ordinance form to reflect all of that work. And my understanding from talking to Mr. DeBose is that we do have room in the timeline for one deferral, but that I can't recall what date he told me it was, but we are under a bit of a tight timeline. So you'll have to, if you did it by title only, we will have it ready for June 1st in draft form.
I'd like to amend my motion just to say that we adopted in title only at this time, not to keep from slowing down the process. I did watch the CPST meeting online the other night. There was a lot of great discussion that went on about it. I got no problem with it, but since we do not have all of the meat of the thing here in front of us, just to keep the process going, a motion that we accept it by title only.
Okay. Mr. Livingston clarified or amended his motion to make the motion by title only on this first reading. Ms.
That's
Airwood
okay. That's
second that. So now we're in further discussion, this being title only, to approve this ordinance. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, y'all know my feeling about it, title only. I'm going to go ahead and do it this time because I, like Mr. Livingston, did watch. I think it's important for people here to say, though, that the purpose of that committee is to decide those projects and what it does, and that's a diverse committee of not just county council appointees, but from across the county for the municipalities. And so this is not our list of projects. This is a county-wide list of projects that comes back to the table.
And I think based on what Mr. Inglesi has said too, that we are under some sort of a time crunch on this. We only have one meeting to play with, and I don't know that we need to use up that option at this point. So
for those that's listening or tuned in, that this is not a new tax. It's a CPST tax that we already have. It would be just, if it's voted on by the public, it would stay and fund additional projects.
And just to add to that, a lot of that money comes from outside of this county. Taxpayers don't have to bear the burden of all of it. So that's the beauty of it. It is a continuation of the 1%. But so many people from the outside participate in paying for our projects.
okay, great points. And if we have no further discussion, I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Todd, yea or nay?
Yay. Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Title only, and we'll have the full language on the ordinance at our next June 1st meeting. Item number 10, ordinance number 516-2022, an ordinance to allow county council to enter into land developments agreements as authorized by South Carolina Code of Laws, section 6-31-10. And I understand the Planning Commission has already this has already come before Planning Commission, is that correct, Mr. Inglesi?
Yes, sir. This was presented to Planning Commission at their meeting last night. They did not take action on it. They did defer to contemplate the ordinance. There was a good discussion But just to give you a summary of what this is, state statute authorizes local governments to enter into land development agreements under certain conditions. The biggest condition is that it has to be a minimum of 25 acres. And this sets forth, it sort of mirrors, it does mirror the state statute for what minimum requirements have to be presented to county council in order to enter into negotiations with a developer for a development of a piece of land. For example, this requires a conceptual plan. It requires that the proposed development plan address public facilities such as sewer and water and electric and roads. It requires the plan or the agreement to address any historical or environmental features on the property. It requires a topographical survey of the property and other details that must be included when we're in negotiations with them. The development agreement would give council an opportunity to negotiate things that would provide a public benefit. For example, if a 200-acre development was being proposed, you could negotiate a land donation to be provided for civic uses, such as a firehouse or a school building or a drainage area or for a turn lane or whatever public infrastructure is needed as a result of that development. Without this, zoning entitlements give entitlements, and there is no negotiation that happens. On the flip side of that, densities can be negotiated, green space can be negotiated, and the intention is that a better, wholesome, comprehensive development will happen. You'll get green space in a community that's within proximity of where those folks will live. You might get some commercial neighborhood services like a barbershop and daycare center and things that would serve a neighborhood. And those types of details can be negotiated between the landowner and county council. What I told Planning Commission last night is that by state statute and by this ordinance, hopefully you'll have some peace of mind that there are 2 public hearings in addition to 3 readings in order to enter into a development agreement. One public hearing is held at Planning Commission where they'll get public feedback and they can consider that in their recommendation. And a second public hearing will happen at County Council, and that's what this ordinance sets forth. So there'll be lots of public input through the process. It will be negotiated somewhat in executive session, but there will be lots of opportunity for public input, and it will be as transparent as we can be through the process. And in fact, once the development agreement is in draft form, it will be public and has to be part of the agendas that are published. But this just gives us another tool in the planning toolbox to get community benefit elements into a development that's being brought forward.
Okay, good explanation. Just from my own information, this ordinance just approves us to be able to have these land development plans. It doesn't approve anything specific at this point. It just approves the process, and then the specifics come back to county council. So we'll have our opportunities specifically to address any entity that wants to use this as a...
That's right, and it gives them a minimum set of standards for them to prepare a proposal for county council's consideration. So they got to have a much greater level of detail than they do for just a standard entitled proposal. Much more detail. We'll get much more information on the front end.
Okay.
What type of development? Economic development, housing, commercial? What type of development? All of the above, or what?
So this would typically be for a subdivision. So anything coming to Planning Commission to subdivide into multiple lots. It could be a residential development, it could be commercial, it could be mixed use, residential and commercial. But it's separate and apart from FILO agreements for an industrial park or an MCIP.
All right, I heard you say something to the effect that such and such could be required, whether turning lanes, et cetera, et cetera. Didn't I hear you say that?
So public facilities can be negotiated in the development agreement.
But that would be only through the developer themselves, not an adjoining landowner, because part of that sounded like condemnation, but it would only be from the individual that's actually doing the development, not an adjoining landowner.
Correct, that's correct.
More questions, comments?
Would this be with every development that was of large? Is
Anything
this something that's they have to do?
They won't have to do this. Anything, it will only be available to a parcel that's 25 acres or more. And if their existing zoning is satisfactory to them and they want to move under the entitlements that the existing zoning provide for them, then this is a process that they don't have to take advantage of. Typically, I think there are parcels that have fairly low density allowances, and typically, instead of going through a rezoning to get a rezoning that would go from one end of the spectrum of density to an extreme other end of the spectrum, this would allow council to negotiate an appropriate density level in exchange for some of those public facility benefits that the ordinance allows for, like green space. Even design requirements can be negotiated. Infrastructure improvements can be negotiated and things like that. So all of that is on the table. But it's voluntary. They can take advantage of it if they want to.
So if it's voluntary, what's really the purpose in it?
Well, like I said, there are zone districts where only 1 unit per acre is allowed, and they might seek a rezoning for 4 units per acre, for example. And that might be too extreme of a change for this community or for council. But maybe 2 or 3 units per acre might be a tolerable density, and in exchange for that higher density, green space would be negotiated, space for civic use for a school, infrastructure improvements for the road might be negotiated in there. So it gives you an opportunity to negotiate community benefits in the development that you otherwise don't have under the existing zoning.
That the developer would pay for?
It can be negotiated. So yes, they can pay for it. Like economic development, the county might provide for a road improvement. But when you look at the tax base expansion, and you can run numbers and all that can be negotiated. And it may be a partial thing where the county contributes something like we do in economic development. One of the tools that is available under state law is called a residential improvement district. And if the county were to decide to negotiate and put up front some money for, say, a road improvement, the county can recover those funds through a special assessment post-development. Mm-hmm. So if 70% of the development is built out, at that point, the development agreement would say, when 70% of development is built out, the county can impose a special assessment to recover the funds that were provided up front to build that road, including any interest or fees that were required to make the taxpayers whole.
It's not an impact fee, is it?
It's not, but an impact fee can be negotiated within the development agreement. So even though we don't have an impact fee ordinance and an impact fee now, if you had a significant development, you could in your negotiations say, we're going to need a road improvement. You need to pay $1,000 per permit, and that's going to be in a fund that we use to improve that road and provide a turning lane there, for example, or to provide drainage, or to put a park there, or to provide the school with some land for a new school building. And you don't, having this on the books doesn't mean you have to engage in negotiations. It's just giving you that
So who would
opportunity.
keep up with it if you had that imposed and say it was $1,000 and it went into a certain
So the building department would impose that at the time of pulling a permit and paying a permit.
And they would collect the money.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we would have to put it in a special fund in the treasurer's.
Sure, yeah. If that's what the development agreement instructs us to do, then that's what we would do.
As a question, if we had this land development plan, if somebody came in now, if they meet the minimum zoning requirements, that's all they have to do. But under this special development plan, if they wanted to come in with higher density housing, could we impose additional requirements on this quality of the construction of those houses that you can't do under zoning?
You can, in fact, a development agreement, one of the things you can do is impose or negotiate design standards. So if you wanted to prohibit vinyl siding, you could do that through the development agreement, but you can't do that through zoning.
So this really gives us
More
more control
control.
over larger land development.
I think I like what I'm hearing, but again, it's a lot to take in at one time. I'd almost like to see a bullet point of the advantages versus what we're currently doing. I do like the fact that we'd have possibly more negotiation value. The thing that keeps popping back in my mind, if it's voluntary, then how do we really make it happen? I do feel that density is something we definitely need to continue to try to address more, because I'm telling you, when you go to getting houses on 0.19, 0.25 acres of land, you know, again, I've had some people say, well, conflict of interest being in real estate, but you speak from your professional perspective. Heck, I've been standing and trying to sell a house and one person, and it's like E.F. Hutton, and when you walk in the backyard, there's 3 other neighbors standing in the backyard trying to hear. When you get that much people just interacting into stuff, I'm not so sure the quality of life is good. I'm not so sure that it doesn't jeopardize the possibility of safety and conflicts with families over, one family over another, making a comment to somebody else. So I think what I kind of heard you say, the density is something that does concern me. I think we don't want to track like some areas where I've seen where there's just houses right on top of one another. I mean, for example, there's one that I actually listed 3 years ago, and I could take and do this and I couldn't touch, but if I took my camera and stuck it out, I could touch the houses. I mean, that's just
Too close.
too close. When one catches on fire, it jeopardizes our fire departments, where you may have 2 or 3 houses burning right side by side with one another. So I do agree with the density. And again, I'm not saying I'm not for this. I just want to have a little better idea of what the value of it, Christopher, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think the planning commission, it was a lot for them to take in, and they didn't take action. They wanted to think about it, and certainly there's nothing pressing right now that makes this an urgent
This is
matter.
something that, you know, seemed like it's been in your experience bucket. And have you had these development plans in, like, Georgetown or Beaufort or other places?
In Beaufort, I was involved in a couple of them.
It sounds like
And in
PUDs to me.
Charleston. So
PUDs.
So a development agreement and a PUD can be worked together, and that is a good way of handling it. So the development agreement would set up a framework, but the property would have to go through the zoning process, and it would go through a rezoning process. And not typically, but one good tool is to commit to a rezoning in the development agreement to PD, which doesn't commit you to anything specific in terms of densities or setbacks or anything else. They still have to go through the rezoning process, where they'll pitch their PD, and under the existing zoning, they might have 1 unit per acre, and they come to the planning commission and they say, you know, we've got this development agreement, everybody agree we're going to come with a PD. Here's our first, you know, our first swing at a PD, and then there can be some back and forth between planning commission and say, we don't like that density, maybe it should be this. We don't, you know, maybe there's a variety of housing, so maybe you get sub-densities in one phase.
I've seen it. I've seen that where each phase would be different types of density.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying I don't like it. I actually just seem to think I like it. I just want to, I'm a very visual person. I'd rather see some
I
bullets
think
on
I
it.
like
can do
it
a
too,
presentation.
but
Yeah.
I would like to.
I think we do need more control and make sure we don't let things get out of hand. So, I mean, if it
Right.
gives.
And
us
I think
more
there's
control.
some interesting things that are going on as well. I'm familiar with one community very near us. They're gonna hire 10 new police officers in the next year based off of what they negotiated on their housing permits for one development. So I think there's some great things that could be done from public safety as well. But based on what I heard, I think if Mr. Hipp would indulge me, I'd like to make a motion that we defer our vote to our next meeting, where we can gather more information.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, since we're not,
I like it, but
we haven't had a motion at this point. This has just been discussion at this point.
okay.
So we could defer action on line item 10 until our June 1st meeting or thereafter. It doesn't have to be the June 1st meeting.
It may be good to let the planning commission go ahead and finish their deliberation, which won't be until, I think, the third Tuesday of June,
Which is right before our meeting.
which will be our second meeting in June. So
Okay.
I could bring it back then, report what planning commission's final decision, and they had some revisions. I think they want to, one of the comments I heard last night was, we'd like the school board to be consulted on some of the large projects. And so that's a revision we'll probably have to make. There was some consensus from planning commission that that's important to them. And then I can report what planning commission did and go ahead and put a couple slides together for presentation.
Okay, I think I'm hearing consensus to defer this until the June 15th meeting. Is that? Okay. Item 10 will be deferred and put on our agenda for June 15th. Item 11 on our agenda is council consideration of proposals for the compensation and classification study. So, Mr. Inglesi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this was the much anticipated consultant for our comp class study. We got 3 responses to RFPs. The committee was, the scoring committee included the HR director, the procurement director, and myself. And the score sheets are in your packet, and we're recommending to go forward with Management Advisory Group, whose proposal is at $27,500 with a 4-month timeline. They demonstrated extraordinary qualifications and experience in South Carolina with comp class, and we're very excited to move forward with that and requesting approval to get started.
Just so the public knows, what was the range of prices on that, Christopher?
The second highest score was $1,000 more at $28,500, and the lowest score was $21,000, around $21,000, between $21,000 and $22,000, I believe.
And I say that just to let people know, sometimes you get what you pay for, sometimes going with the lowest is not always the best, and I'm not saying they're not, but I just think that when you look at the other 2 that's so close together, I think that's probably a wise decision, just FYI.
So the administration staff that reviewed those proposals were consistent in their classifications, I
They
think.
were, the scores were consistent, and the top 2 scores were within 3 points of each other, and the third was a distant third, so it was competitive. And their prices were pretty much spot on with each other, so.
And the, I'm sorry, the name of the preferred bidder was?
Management Advisory Group is the recommended consultant.
Management Advisory. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the bid from Management Advisory for the compensation and classification study? I have a motion by Mr. Shealy, a second by Mr. Reeder. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by right hand. Todd, yea or nay?
Yay.
Okay, passes unanimously. All right, item number 12. council consideration to proposals for the Economic Development Strategic Plan. Mr. Farmer.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Chairman, and members of council. I'm delighted to be standing here before you to discuss the Economic Development Strategic Plan. As you know, a couple of months ago, we issued a request for proposal to any respondents who would love to put together a proposal for us to facilitate the strategic planning process, craft the strategic plan, and publish the strategic plan. We did receive 4 responses to our proposal. Staff assembled a committee of the county administrator, Mr. Inglesi, the purchasing director, Ms. Waldrop, and myself to review these strategic plan proposals. I'm happy to report that all 3 of us chose the recommended respondent as our number 1 score. Creative Economic Development Consulting scored about 10% higher than the number 2 respondent. We did hold virtual interviews with the top 2 scoring firms. This project is currently within, the funding is within the current economic development budget. And so staff's recommendation would be that we accept the highest ranked firm, Creative Economic Development Consulting, and their proposal in the amount of $52,615. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions from council?
And you had how many?
We had 4 total respondents.
And what was the span
What was
of
the
the?
span?
The highest cost proposal was $91,700. The lowest was $50,800. The firm we are recommending for approval tonight, Creative Economic Development Strategies, had the second least expensive proposal. The cheapest proposer was at $50,800. This one is at $52,615. So the one that we're recommending for approval is approximately 3.5% higher, $52,615 versus $50,800.
I make the motion that we accept the recommendation, and again, it is within the budget that was provided.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Livingston to accept the recommended Creative Economic Development Consulting for $52,615. A second by Ms. Airwood. Discussion, further discussion. If there is no discussion, call for the question. All in favor, raise your right hand. Todd, yea or nay?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. All right, item number 13, consideration to approve the purchase of a second brush truck utilizing bid already received, conditional on final approval of the 22-23 budget. Tommy Long.
Thank you, sir. We were budgeting $150,000 for the brush truck. However, the bid that we had initially got was $140,109. So we actually are saving about $10,000 on this truck versus what we had projected. So I'm here tonight to ask you to move forward with issuing the PO so we can get this ordered. It'll probably take 3 to 4 months at the earliest to get this vehicle built.
Okay, the request is to go ahead and place the order. It's in the next year's budget, and it also would not be spent until
This is ARPA funds, by the way. I meant to mention that.
Okay, ARPA funds, so it's not a budget item, okay?
Anything that's coming in under budget, at this point in time, I make a motion, we move forward.
All right, so we have a motion, a second by Mr. Shealy. All right, now, any additional discussion on spending our ARPA funds for the purchase of that brush truck? All in favor, right hand. Todd,
Yes.
yea or nay?
Yes.
All right, it is unanimous. All right, Tommy, item number 14.
Okay, this is for a remount ambulance for Newberry Rescue Squad. We had initially budgeted $225,000 for this. We were able to negotiate with the vendor that bid on the EMS truck for this current budget year. And we're able to also include a Lucas device, which is a device that does CPR for the responders in the back of the truck. It came in at $224,631.54, which is just slightly under the budgeted amount of $225,000. And we would like to do the same here. This is ARCA funding, and we'd like to do the same here as issue the PO. Since we got confirmation from the vendor, he does have a chassis on site that we can get started on this truck fairly quick. That the time frame, I'm not exactly sure to get it built, but it's going to be well into the new budget year. But we'd like to go ahead and issue that PO.
Okay, now, when you say new budget year, we talking ARPA funds
It is ARPA.
again?
It is again, yes.
Okay.
If you need me to, I'll go ahead and make that motion again.
All right. Motion by Mr. Livingston to accept, second by Ms. Airwood. Any additional discussion?
How much is that lupus device that,
It's about $15,000.
so you got that thrown in?
We currently don't have one of those for that squad.
So it's kind of like you negotiated and got that added in?
We was
for-
able to get that added in within the
And
budget.
still came under?
Right.
That's good.
It's a very useful tool if you're doing CPR, especially if you're on a long transport. Instead of having somebody standing over that patient having to do CPR, it does it for you. So if you've been in the back of the ambulance by yourself, it's a no-brainer to have this piece of equipment. So we're very happy to be able to get that for them. I only have one squad now that has a device like that, and that's Lake Murray. Eventually, I'd like to see all the squads have that device on their ambulance, though, because it's a lifesaver for the paramedic or EMT in the back of the truck, especially if they're by themselves.
Yeah, and the truck moving.
This comment has nothing to do with the outcome of the vote by any sense of the word. Just again, for those two departments, the rescue and public safety that we have, just thank y'all for everything y'all do.
Thank you very much.
Anything we can do to make it better, I feel that's what we ought to do for our citizens and for the volunteers and everybody else that's working within it.
Okay. So we have the motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Todd, yea or nay?
Yay.
It is unanimous. All right, at this point, we have on our agenda to go into an executive session under Code Section 30-4-70A of the Code of Laws of South Carolina as amended in 1976 for the discussion of negotiations incident to propose contractual arrangements and proposed sale or purchase of property, the receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim, or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege, settlement of legal claims, or the position of the public agency in other adversary situations involving the assertion against the agency of a claim. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? Motion by Mr. Shealy, second by Ms. Airwood. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Todd, yea or nay?
Yes.
All right. Hopefully this, since we've got Todd on joining us, we're going to have to stay in here, I guess.
We
Or,
can go and get him on the phone. We'll put him on speakerphone.
okay. Well, y'all can stay here. We'll move. County Council went into executive session in accordance with Code Section 30-4-70. Alpha, no action was taken in that executive session. Do we have a vote to come out of executive session?
I make a motion that we come out of executive session.
Motion by Ms. Airwood, second by Mr. Shealy. All in favor, raise your right hand. And Todd, yea or nay?
Yes.
Okay, good. We're out of executive session. No action was taken. Next item on our agenda is adoption of the consent agenda consisting of County Council meeting minutes from April 20th, the budget work session minutes of April 20th, the budget work session minutes of April 26th, and County Council meeting minutes of May 4th. Do I have a motion to approve and adopt the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda with any necessary corrections.
Motion by Mr. Reader, second by Mr. Shealy. Any comments, questions, amendments? All in favor? Raise your right hand.
Yay.
Todd? Okay. Unanimously approval. We're now at number 17, appointments. As we began our meeting, we eliminated 17A on the task force. We have an appointment for the fire board. Mr. Scurry is not here, so I'm going to say that we need to defer his appointments until he can actually make those appointments at our next meeting. All right. At this point, we have public comments. We only had one person signed up, and that was Mr. John Glasgow, and of course, he started out with his presentation. So at this point, we don't have any others signed up. We have comments from our county administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of real quick announcements. Senator Cromer is responsible for appointing the Veterans Affairs Director. And of course, with Mr. Parnell's retirement, that will be vacant this summer. So if you know anybody interested, we are working on getting that posted and doing some recruitment. But if you know anybody, by all means, Senator said he's open to any referrals or nominations. We're happy to welcome our new staff. We've been busy getting them oriented and onboarded. There's a lot of information, the clerk has been absorbing and HR director, and we're just excited to welcome them aboard. Also want to thank Gary from Facilities. He cleaned the carpets and chambers this week, as well as in the hallway and administrative offices, and he's going to be doing some more in the rest of the building as well. So thank you, Gary. And that is all I got. Thank you.
Okay, comments from council members. We'll start. Nick?
No comment, thank you.
Buddy?
Just again, this is National Law Enforcement Week. Thank them for all they do to keep our county safe, and a catch-all if anybody decides to stop here for a little while, especially if they've done some criminal, because it's very few of them that land here that don't end up in jail. So we've got a heck of a force.
I agree with that. If you're gonna come through, you better go. We'll get you. Sheriff Foster will get you. Want to welcome our new staff members. Glad to get some of these positions filled. It'll certainly benefit us in the near future, as soon as they get acclimated. So we're glad to have you. That's all.
I'd just like to thank all the staff for the continued budget works. I know it's been a pretty tough time, and I appreciate everything that y'all have done as far as bringing the budget together. So thank you. And I also like to thank everybody who called me during the time I was out and down, and I appreciate everyone giving me the opportunity to still be here when I was at home. I didn't get behind on anything, and I appreciate being able to be caught up until I got back.
Todd, you have some comments?
just very grateful again for our law enforcement and all that goes on, being able to travel around the country. We certainly have the best, and so we're thankful for that. And I'm appreciative that the new chairs made it just in time for the meeting that I wasn't at.
All right, I have just a comment or two. I want to especially recognize and say thank you. Karen's not here, unfortunately, but Karen and Debbie. Debbie, you're here, and you have, I would say, worn two hats, but it's been a whole lot more than two. And so you have done a wonderful job for us, and I appreciate it. The WKDK, tomorrow is the, third Thursday? Are you still planning on having that meeting tomorrow morning at WKDK?
That will start in June.
Okay.
The third Thursday in June will be the first one.
Okay, and our future meetings.
Les, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
Karen Bremer, I understand, lost her mother-in-law, and if we could keep that family in our thoughts and prayers, that's why she's not here tonight, but if we could keep that family in her thoughts, I thought, in everyone's thoughts and prayers, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm sorry, I should have said that earlier.
No problem. Excuse me. Future meetings, we've got economic development on 5/23 at 6. Our next county council meeting is June 1st at 6, and that will be the public hearing for our 22-23 budget. Will be on that agenda. The Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for June 6th at 6. Public Safety Committee meeting on June 13 at 6. And County Council meeting on June 15th at 6, and that's when we'll have third and final reading on the budget. Do we have anything else? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Mr. Reader, Ms. Airwood, seconds, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Raise your hands. Okay, we're adjourned.